There's a funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 on nEWSWIRE. And we fired up YouTube, and then Jesse got me all discombobulated with that. He didn't roll the intro music up while I'm listening. Says you're on Facebook. I'm saying, I didn't hear no music. Well, he got all the. Now that we added that back in, we got our processes all discombobulated, but we'll figure it out on that. On a Thursday on that. I keep forgetting the little acronyms for the day on that, so maybe I'll remember Feckless Friday tomorrow or whatever we'll call it then. Lots of stuff going on. We'll have Kevin KILEY, assembly member from the legislature of California, with some absolutely incredible news happened on the assembly floor out there in that. Just when you think things couldn't get absurd enough on that, and I wouldn't have guessed this would have ever happened. I mean, I wouldn't have guessed this would have happened, but it did in California. On top of that, the recall date is set. We'll get into that in a bit. Gavin Newsom recall is on the docket, so it's game on. Secretary of State stamped it. The Lieutenant Governor, Ellen Karakapopoulos, or whatever the hell her last name is, set the date today for September 14th, so it's ready to. So get ready to rock and roll. This whole January 6th thing is really getting deep, and we'll delve into that with Tucker Carlson, Darren Beatty, and others on that have been reporting on that. Looks like our government agencies are turning against us, and who was actually behind the January 6th so-called insurrection? I think it was actually a planned operation of the government. We will detail that in a bit. But of course, everybody loves to see things blown up. There's nothing like it. Everybody loves it. Well, we do actually employ people to blow things up, whether it's in our military or our public safety agencies. We have bomb squads in most of our police, sheriff's departments. Of that, if there's a threatening device or something that needs to be detonated or that, they come out. And now they have robots mainly to do that. But they were making a fireworks bus down in L.A. Went in there and I guess loaded up all the regular fireworks. They found about 10 pounds of funny-looking stuff. Says this stuff looks pretty volatile. They ran all their tests of that. They brought out their wagon that, they can detonate, I think, up to about 20 pounds on that. Flip up number 4, please. It's like a double layer, triple layered steel, probably half-inch thick, 3 times of that, that they can detonate it. They determined whatever was in this, and it was only about 10 pounds according to the authorities' press conference, about half of the capacity that they could detonate. They said, this stuff looks strange, it looks pretty volatile on that, so we'll just roll in the armored blow-up machine, and we will just blow it in because we don't want it exploding as we're driving down the street with it or that. So this is the first. This is the video that was caught at the scene on that. I think this was KTLA 5's copter was flying over the scene at the time. So here we go. So there it is. Boom! They blew their little toy all to smithereens. I guess there you're seeing it again, or seeing the aftermath. Truck is completely destroyed. The triple armored encapsulator deal that's supposed to contain this is blown to smithereens. Jesse says it was made in China, which it could be. I mean, somebody blew this one extremely big time on that. I mean, they either underestimated the volatile chemicals that were in there or something, because it was about half the capacity that they can do. Like they said, they can do up to 20 pounds at a time on site without transporting it, blow it up in there, probably done it hundreds of times or whatever on that. So yeah, we don't know if it was a failure. Seems hard to believe, unless it was made in China, like Jesse said, or failure of the equipment, or the explosive material was much more volatile. But just go to think of this. What if these illegal fireworks would have got out and this stuff was just like hyper potent, destructive material? Imagine if somebody had lit off fireworks on this. I guess it blew debris for, a quarter mile away. People's ears were ringing. It's a wonder the guys that were, the bomb squad around there didn't get hurt. I imagine nobody was in the truck when they lit it off, because, I mean, you would think they would be seriously hurt as bad as that truck was damaged. Flip up number 4, please. This is the explosion as was caught on Instagram as it went off on that. You can see the big orange flame cloud going in the air where that particular, that's another video that was caught by somebody on the ground on this particular incident going forward. So it was very devastating, and I mean, somebody somewhere is going to have to answer a lot of questions. Obviously, and they did say they had a suspect in custody for the fireworks. Evidently, or obviously, he's going to have a lot of questions to answer. On top of that, the bomb squad of LA is going to have a lot of questions to answer. As how did you misrepresent or not take into the account the potency of this stuff and what actually was in it? And that will be determined of the suspects, or where this guy got, if there were more people involved, where these chemicals or whatever came from, what combination they were. Because obviously, sans it being a equipment failure, on top of that, it had to, if they had this amount of dangerous chemicals, explosives with them, and we're going to light them off as fireworks, in the next couple of days or so. Talk about, they're talking about, well, you might blow your hand off with this stuff. Hell, that'd have been with this stuff, that'd have probably been the easiest thing you had. Flip up number 4, please. Gas prices are skyrocketing in the IE. None other thanks to the California legislature. The people who voted in a majority for SB 1 in 2017. Governor Gula, Gavin Newsom, and Moonbeam Brown as governor and lieutenant governor. And the California Highway Patrol and Sheriff's Departments, CHP, I don't know Sheriff's Department specifically, but CHP, that were making commercials and funding the yes on SB 1, the increase in the gas tax, which went into effect, which it goes up every year, which went into effect today. So gas prices are going higher, in large part to responsible of them, and convincing the people that their roads were going to deteriorate. They weren't going to have, that. And as they said, we're still researching it, but only 40% of the promised projects in there were built, and it looks like most of the, or a majority of the money was transferred into the general fund to fund things like $31 billion in unemployment fraud in California. On top of that, not only do we have the highest electricity prices in the nation of the 50 states, along with the highest gasoline prices and diesel, we are running out of electricity. Seems like nobody else is except Texas. And a lot of you Texas touters out there, Texas, under Rick Perry and then Greg Abbott, current governor, picked it up, started a big boom on this green energy, solar panels, and all this other crap. They're the two places that are having electricity shortages in the two states, let me say this, they're having electricity shortages are Texas and California. We are now ordering our California grid operator, which goes out, which supplies and runs the grid, is all them power lines and distribution centers and that. They are begging other states for more power. As Gavin Newsom said, he's going to close down natural gas plants. Hey, sans we don't build any nuclear plants, the cheapest and cleanest form of energy that we know of, for more of the disaster of this whole so-called green energy and zero emissions, which there is no such thing. You, as a human being, are a polluter. We all pollute the environment, if that's the way you want to define it. There's no such thing as zero emissions. And just as we do the cow farts and your farts and everything else, everything you do causes damage to the environment. You living causes damage to the environment. So when they talk about this green energy or zero emissions, that means zero human population. Think about it and tell me factually that is correct. Because we all emit CO2 when we breathe it out. So we are pollutant exporters of greenhouse gases. So when they want a zero emissions economy, think about what they're really meaning when they say that, what the real meaning of that is. Just like when you hear all these nuts that say spout systemic racism, and they don't even know what the definition of systemic is. Flip over number 4, please. There it is. Gulag Gavin Newsom's recall has been set for September 14th. What, about 2 months from now? Or about 2.5? Let's see, July, yeah, a little bit, about 2.5 months is the election date for the recall of Gavin Newsom. So we got about, 80 days or so, something like that, to get rid of this Klondike out of office, to stop the madness of the high gas prices, the exploding electricity prices, and if other states don't bail us out with either coal-fired plants or natural gas electricity plants, they will be shutting off your power because they are running in a panic. The California grid operator, as of today, saying we don't have enough power to supply the people of the state of California. And just for that, you should recall Gavin Newsom. Not to mention his lies about the fire, 690% overestimated in the 2 years plus since he's been in office. 2 years ago when he first got in office, says we're going to clear this and do that and support the firefighters and all this stuff. Have missed the goals by almost 7 times. 690% for those of you in Adelanto, California. So, I mean, we can go on. The unemployment fraud, the mask mandates, the lockdowns, which proven between California, Los Angeles, and Florida, did not make a tinker's damn. In fact, if you want to say that statistically, California was made worse by the lockdowns and the mask mandates and the closing of the economy. That is a big lie that we're roaring back. We are last in most of unemployment. Our economy grew 42%. That's the second lowest in the first quarter. That's the second lowest of the 59 states. That is the 49th ranking. Sounds impressive, although you don't say that practically everything was a grinding halt at one quarter they're comparing it to. But that's where we're at on that. So the recall is on. We'll get into that and more when Kevin Kiley comes on here in a bit. National Security Agency, NSA, they're one of these. They're kind of like an offshoot of the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, but one of these new three-letter word or three-letter acronyms we need to get rid of. Tucker Carlson, he had Darren Beattie on. Darren Beattie's been bringing out a lot of it about the Oath Keepers and that whole thing. And there's a lot of gathering evidence, Julie Kelly has. There's a lot of gathering evidence that our government, NSA, FBI, Chris Wray, and all that, were clandestinely working with Rhodes of the Oath Keepers of that to run this little fandango that went on January 6th at the Capitol. But Tucker Carlson had Darren Beattie on and went through this about 2 weeks ago. And then all of a sudden he discovers this, and according to his allegations, the NSA couldn't have found this anywhere but his private stuff, which they should not be snooping around of, not only as a private citizen, but as a member of the press. So here we go.
Last night we told you about the Biden administration's efforts to monitor and intimidate this show. On Sunday, we heard from a whistleblower within the U.S. government, someone with direct knowledge, who warned us that the NSA was reading our electronic communications, our emails and texts, and was planning to leak them selectively in an effort to hurt us. This person had details from my emails that no one outside the recipient could have known. So it was not a delusion, it was entirely real. In fact, it was confirmed. After the show last night, after we announced this, other news organizations acted as if it's totally normal for heavily politicized intel agencies to spy on and threaten journalists they disagree with. It's no big deal. Stop whining. But it is a big deal. It is completely wrong, not to mention illegally. And this is hardly the first time the so-called intelligence community has done something like this. They've done an awful lot of it. Look it up. If we let them continue to do it, it's the end of democracy. Democracy can't function with semi-independent, highly politicized intel agencies. It's really dangerous. For its part, the Biden administration just ignored the story. They did not deny the story. They can't. They know that it's true. Today, the president's flack was asked about it on Air Force One. Here's the exchange.
Tucker Carlson said that the NSA is spying on him. Is the administration aware of any espionage or listening efforts on U.S. citizens by the NSA, and is Tucker Carlson one of them?
Well, the NSA, as I think you're well aware, I'm sure everyone's aware, everyone on this plane is aware, I should say, is an entity that focuses on foreign threats and individuals who are attempting to do us harm on foreign soil. So that is their purview, but beyond that, I would point you to the intelligence community.
So notice that Press Secretary Jane Psaki, or whatever the hell her name is, did not deny it. NSA is denying it, but I wouldn't give you a tinker's damn for anything those clowns said. I mean, if Tucker Carlson was blowing smoke and the NSA had nothing to do with this, Psaki and Joe Biden should be issuing a statement that Tucker Carlson is out of his frickin' mind and we would never do anything like that. Notice that is not coming only somewhat weaselly from the NSA on that. We're not in it because they shouldn't even be doing that. There was nothing to do with that. And Tucker Carlson didn't specifically mention it, but a lot of speculation is because of his interview with Darren Beattie, who's been on this stuff and was a former speechwriter for President Donald J. Trump on that. This is in his article on Revolver, his site of that. So it says, federal protection of Oath Keepers, Kingpin Stuart Rose breaks the entire Capitol insurrection lie wide open. This is June 30th by Darren Beattie on that. You're showing the deal on that. Hey, Republicans, you can crack open the entire story of January 6th, 1-6, with one simple question. What relationship did the FBI and Army counterintelligence have with Stuart Rhodes? Stuart Rhodes is the founder, boss, and kingpin of Oath Keepers. Oath Keepers, we are told, are America's largest militia, the most prominent anti-government group in the United States, and preeminent right-wing domestic extremist insider threat to the entire U.S. military. Whatever the truth of these hyperbolic claims, the fact remains the Oath Keepers are the most extensively prosecuted paramilitary group alleged to be involved in 1/6. Indeed, it was alleged pre-planned assault on the Capitol by Stuart Rhodes, alleged Oath Keepers lieutenants, that was used as a key talking point to try and convert the day's events from a protest into an insurrection. But Stuart Rhodes is simply not a key figure in Oath Keepers. Stuart Rhodes is the Oath Keepers, according to Oath Keepers board members Richard Mack. Elmer Stuart Rhodes III, a one-time Army paratrooper, disbarred Yale lawyer, constitutionalist, gun enthusiast, and far-right media star, founded the group and called it Oath Keepers in 2009. Since then, he has ridden cross-currents of American anger and strife that ran from the scrubby western deserts to the angry urban protests right in the Capitol Rotunda. I think that was the Bundy situation up in Las Vegas. Mack and others have also raised concerns about Oath Keepers' participation in violent protests. It has become clear that the board has no real power. Stuart Rhodes is the Oath Keepers. It's hard to separate the two. It's his organization, and he can do what he wants. Basically, when you go through there, Oath Keepers and Stuart Rhodes is not being charged or has not been charged of that. Flip up number 4, please. These facts alone are alleged, but more than legally sufficient to secure the indictment of Stuart Rhodes. We will walk you through the mountains of direct and circumstantial evidence built on top of these allegations, but readers must understand this. The only reason Stuart Rhodes is not in jail right now is because a deliberate decision by the Justice Department to protect him. So is Stuart Rhodes, as the allegations are going, an inside plant by our U.S. government or forces in it to cause disruption, to cause the insurrection, as it was so called in 1/6? If it was planned or had knowledge of our U.S. government, and they were either involved or did nothing to stop what was going on, then it is not an insurrection. It was an attempted takeover or disruption of our government was inside of our government, which might even match the definition of a coup going on. Now, if you think Darren Beattie is just blowing smoke, in the tablet, they put up the same thing, America's New Political Prisoners. And we've written the articles, flip up number 4, please, of Julie Kelly. Julie Kelly is also first started out thinking it was an insurrection or what the heck's going on. And she's been reporting the same thing over the years, says this don't look right of that. Now in this, the tablet is starting to ask questions about this stuff of that, interviewing Kelly and stuff on that. They have castigated anybody that has even brought up the remote possibility that the government might be involved. This was all a bunch of straight white males that were pissed off because Trump didn't get elected, and that. Increasingly, there's becoming more and more evidence our U.S. government was involved in what happened on January 6th at the Capitol building, in that, mind you, the cops let the people in. And there's even more backroom videotape that's been being released or has been recovered, I think, under Freedom of Information Acts, shows this people being led in the back door, allegedly, by police officers into the Capitol building. If this is all tied together, this is going to be explosive of what's going on that. It's absolutely fantastic. I don't got time to play the video, but we've had Chef Andrew Gruel on that. Flip up number 4 just real quick. He's really steamed about Newsom passing the bill to move up the recall vote on that. He roasted Gavin Newsom on that. Andrew Gruel, who's been, out there collecting money and stuff for restaurant industry, who's been hit severely hard by all these lockdowns, unnecessary lockdowns. Gulag Gavin Newsom, as we did the chart yesterday comparing Florida to Los Angeles, which you could almost replicate for the state of California. We are at
1
the
minute.
same point of at that almost no coronavirus but on the lockdown, California spiked way over Florida as they were opening up, letting restaurants do business and things like that. They had much less cases of coronavirus than California. So this mantra that we're roaring back when we're last in all of the statistics,
30
that
seconds.
the lockdowns and the masks work when we did that, here, this might be that might be Kevin. I think he has the wrong number. Check that out. That we're doing that on the deal. It's
Here we go, 10
absolutely
seconds.
SoundCloud tab and hear any show anytime you want.
nEWSWIRE Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's a funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met, 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire on the Formation AM band, joining our vast video audience and nEWSWIRE on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and all them other whatever social media platforms that. No, I don't want to say what I think of them. Well, I'll probably get myself thrown off the air if I really say that. We went through the explosion in there, the 10 pounds of fireworks explosion that blew apart a armored vehicle that was supposed to contain that in L.A. Lots of questions there. The whole deal with the NSA and Tucker Carlson, the 1-6, what really happened? News is popping all over the place on that. Chef Andrew Gruel was really teed off at Gavin Newsom for speeding up the recall election, but we have on to talk about this and another bizarre situation that happened up at the Assembly of the State of California. We have Assemblymember Kevin Kiley from way up there in Northern California, one of the guys that's actually watching out for us and hopefully can stave off the tsunami that's been pretty much drowning us all in California. Kevin Kiley, welcome to nEWSWIRE with Roy.
Well, thank you. It's good to be on as always.
Well, just between this morning when I was talking to your excellent Chief of Staff, Josh, the recall date has been set. It's on September 14th. On the ballot will be to recall Gulag Gavin Newsom. This is great news, Kevin Kiley.
That's right. We at long last have a date. Actually, it's ironically coming a little earlier than anticipated because, Newsom's cronies at the Capitol decided that all of a sudden they wanted to speed things up a little bit. So they, passed a new law to kind of give them a precise, choice as to the exact day that they want this to happen. And so, as soon as that law passed, boom, the dominoes fell, and now we have September 14th as the election date, which means you'll get your ballot, whether you requested one or not, in the mail in mid-August.
So, if there wasn't a reason, $31 billion in welfare fraud. Lowest rankings is roaring to the back of the economy. Second lowest rankings in the second quarter growth, even though 42% sounds impressive, it's not. Of that, 31 billion, as I mentioned, in of unemployment fraud, a DMV a mess, $100 billion proposed and a bullet train to nowhere, the gas tax that went up today, most of the money not going to fix roads as it was promised, on and this. But the new little vignette I just heard today is because of all of our green energy policies, the California grid operator, which is the one that transmits the electricity to keep the air conditioning in the show and everything else ongoing in this thing, is out there screaming, we need power because we don't have enough in California. Is this absolutely incredible, Kevin Kiley?
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, it just speaks to the fundamental failure of our state government, where it does a lot of things that it ought not to be doing, but it fails at the basics. Preparing us for a drought, keeping the lights on, fighting wildfires, building drivable roads and bridges. So it fails to do these things, and then it interferes with and meddles with our lives and tells us that you have to close down your business and you can't send your kids to school. It's exactly backwards.
Yeah, you mentioned the fire thing. Day one, on his inauguration speech, said, we're going to clear the force, we're going to get the firefighters what they need, made a list of promises we're going to do. A little over 2 years later, he missed the mark by almost 7 times. Kevin.
So sorry, Roy, you're cutting out a little bit, but I think I caught the gist of it. That the governor has been making these just sweeping claims about everything he's been doing to prepare us for fire season, and it's made very impressive sounding assertions about the sort of treatment that he's been giving to fire prone areas, prescribed burns and fuel breaks. And everything else, and it turns out that he has been misrepresenting is the kind word that was used by National Public Radio in their investigation, but has frankly just not been telling the truth by a lot. They say he exaggerated the amount of fire prevention work that was done by 690%.
Yeah, you could take any one of the things we talked about, and might have been able to, say, okay, we'll give you some more time. We'll give you the full 4 years to figure this out. When you put this together collectively, if I don't know how any reasonable person can look at this deal and say, you know what, we not only need another year of Gavin Newsom, we do not need another day of Gulag Gavin Newsom. Kevin.
So sorry, Roy, your sound is for some reason a little choppy. So
yeah, we're hearing you good. We're working on it, but it might be coming through on your end on that. But
probably my fault.
Yeah, but we're testing the dials here, but I'm hearing you fine.
Okay, that's better. I can hear you now.
Oh,
that's
he
good.
said okay. So again, any one of those items that we listed, if that was the only thing going on in California, you could probably live with it or say, okay, we'll give we'll fight the election in 2022. But when you put them all together, not only can we not stand another year of Gavin Newsom, we can't stand another day of him.
Well, that's right, and in a way, that's his great asset is that he has failed so comprehensively in so many ways that it almost sort of weakens the force of any one failure as an argument against him, just because there are so many, that any given one you almost tend to forget about. So I think that is really a challenge when you make the case against Gavin Newsom, is what do you even focus on, because there is so much that he has done to violate the public trust and to really accelerate our state's decline.
Now, this one I would have never guessed would happen. They're switching gears a little bit. We're talking with Kevin Kiley, Assembly member from Rockland, California, up in the Northern California area on that. It's my understanding the California legislature, the Assembly floors where we debate the political, deals, laws, anything to do with California's come up, you and 80 others are duly elected representatives. That's your job, is to debate, put up policy, advocate for your constituents' positions, and that's what it is. It's a political organization. Assembly member, and I'm using this term lightly, Adrian Nazarian walks up to the Senate or on the Assembly floor, and according to something Kevin Kiley was debating, the principles of whatever you were debating of politics on the Assembly floor, wants to shut you up and says it's becoming overly political in the place where, if you're not supposed to discuss politics there, where are you supposed to do it, Kevin?
Well, correct. And not only that, but we were talking about this bill to cheat in the recall by changing the date to exactly when the governor wanted. So I was talking about how the governor had orchestrated this bill, particularly to advantage himself politically. And this other legislator stands up and says, "Oh no, you can't say these negative things about the governor." And what was remarkable is that whenever an assembly member stands up to raise an objection like that, in my time in the assembly, it's almost always, in fact, it has always, I think, been sustained. So the speaker will say, "Okay, yes, I accept your point of order," and tell the person speaking that they need to, address the merits of the bill or what have you. In this case, this was so outlandish that the presiding speaker actually denied the point of order and said that I was, in fact, speaking to the merits of the bill.
Yes, presiding officers, who I'm taking a big leap, who was probably a Democrat, and
Yes.
you're a Republican, and he's ruling very. I mean, when the Democrats are ruling against you on your own stuff, give it full screen. Laura Martin sent us this deal, and we have the two up there, and yeah, it's SB 152 that you're speaking on that on the deal, and she made a nice graphic with Adrian Nazarian and it's becoming overly political quote on there. I mean, and again, the Newsom's the one that brought this up. He's a Democrat who forgot to put Democrat on his recall, so that unless the courts change it, he's not going to have his party affiliation listed on the ballot. And he's proposing changing the rules from when they changed them from the Josh Newman deal, and they lengthened it out, if I recall, in 2017 because they thought they'd help him. Now they think they're going to get helped if they speed it up, so they're changing the rules again. Number one rule of tyrants and dictators: when the rules don't fit, change the rules. And you for pointing it out on the floor of the assembly where we discuss this stuff is getting called out. I mean, what else can happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I think it's, part and parcel of the just sham nature of our legislature, and even more so now that Gavin Newsom has sort of taken over the job of the legislature in many ways. And, with this whole scheme to, change the law for the recall in the middle of the recall, it's really reached an all-time low. This is what you see in banana republics. This is what you see in actual sham democracies. You have human rights organizations that go around the world and blow the whistle on this sort of thing when you have the ruling party or the politicians in power that, exercise their power in order to change the process of an election to make sure they don't lose.
And also being an assembly member, you're an attorney also, but what strikes me is, once a recall election is called, and they signed it, got it going of that should, whatever the law was of how the recall election could go, in my mind, should be the way it goes. Now, if they want to change it on subsequent laws or whatever, okay, we can go through that process, however it is. But as you say, it strikes me as banana republic. Okay, the process has started. This was the rules in place when the recall was filed. The signatures were gathered, everything else. Now we're changing the rules again. Explain to me how that works.
Yeah, and in fact, if you look at, let's take one of these human rights organizations, the European Commission on Elections and Law, or something like that. They distinguish countries that are genuine democracies, that have free and fair elections, as one of the features of countries like that is that they have a stable framework for elections, and any amendments are worked out well in advance of any election. Whereas they distinguish that from, those that are not genuinely meeting the criteria for free and fair elections as, changing election laws at the last moment and without input, and in ways that compromise even the administration of the election, which is what our own county elections and registrars' offices here have said, is that this is going to stress their ability to even get the necessary supplies, the paper to print ballots on. So sort of all the hallmarks of the corruption of an election process as identified objectively by international human rights elections observers are clearly on display here.
Again, yeah, point number 9,452, why come September 14th you need to go out and vote yes on the recall. That's the first question. We got to get, and I hope it doesn't get lost in the next 80 days or whatever it is until September 14th comes, that's the most important thing is yes on the recall, because we got to have 50% plus one, then he's out of office. And we can play the political game, and whoever you want to support or do that on, vote for on that is your choice. But I think as a majority, I don't see how Californians cannot come to that conclusion that Gavin Newsom has to go. Kevin.
Yes, and I think that, that is the extremely important conversation we'll be having as a state here over the course of these next 75-some days, is why is it that we as Californians sacrifice the most and get the least in return? Why is it that this beautiful state is on this seemingly irreversible decline? And I think that, this is our opportunity to connect the dots, to show that it's the corruption at our state capital that is causing this, and that no one has ever embodied that corruption like Gavin Newsom. So by having him removed through an act of popular sovereignty by the people of California, I think we can begin a whole new era in the history of our state.
We got a couple minutes left. Is there anything else on the radar screen coming up we and our audience should be aware of?
Well, I mean, who knows? They've tried every trick in the book with this thing, so they may well have more chicanery up their sleeve. But as it now stands, the Lieutenant Governor of the state has certified the date for the recall election as set forth in our state constitution. And so at this point, I think it's just going to be a sprint to the finish to complete this movement and to bring change to California.
We may most of us be out here down in SoCal, but we really appreciate all the efforts you've done and will continue to do in the future, watching out for all of us in California and, like you said, making California the back into the once golden and beautiful state it was prior to this whole madness coming out. Kevin Kiley, thanks for being on. We'll do it again real soon.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Kevin Kiley, Assembly member, one of the good guys up in, he's from Rockland, California, which is up there just a little bit north of Sacramento, I believe, of that, watching out for us, doing that. And like I say, that whole thing of that. Flip up number 4, please, because I just get, like I said, I mean, I've been at this politics stuff for over 6 decades. And I mean, I would have never guessed that somebody, on top of that, because what Gavin Newsom did would to try and speed up the election to save his own hide was overly political and strikes, as Kevin Kiley pointed out, as what they do in banana republics. And, okay, I might not have agreed with it, but if they wanted to change the recall election standards for the next recall election or redo it, fine, we'll have that debate out in the assembly, and if the legislatures want to pass it, fine and dandy. But once a recall election was established, and they went out and collected signatures under the guise that this was going to be the rules, that we were going to play the game on, everybody knew it, then that's where that date stamp and time should have been frozen in time, and that law, the laws in place at that time, should apply to this recall election, whenever it was pulled. Whenever they were certified to gather signatures, I believe it was middle of last year sometime in 2020. When they were authorized, Orrin Heatley filed the petition to recall the governor, was authorized to go collect signatures. That they did. They collected over 2.1 million signatures. They only needed about 1.5 million. We went through the process. It's been certified. But at that date, when it was filed, that should be the rules we're playing the election on. Not Gavin Newsom trying to play politics. Mind you, it may work. It may backfire. And I think a key. That's why I brought up this breaking news that just hit today on the California power grid. Because Newsom's thinking, well, right now, the vid deal's over with. Coronavirus is down. People are going back to work, getting back to a little bit like the way it was before March of 2020. That, maybe if I can play beat the clock here in the next 80 days and nothing major happens, maybe I can skate this recall. We start having rolling, which the California power grid operator is pulling their hair out, almost asking Gavin Newsom to call a state emergency, saying, you know what, we cannot meet the power demands of California right now. They're begging, trying to buy. Who knows how much power is going to cost this summer and when it is going to be available, and how it's not even anywhere close to being certain that it's going to be 24/365 like it has been for decades, probably 100 years. Now we're going to have, it's only been the last 2 or 3 years we've had these rolling blackouts and all this other stuff, and now they're pulling their hair out, of the California grid operator. And like I say, they're the ones that control all the transmission lines and all this other stuff. And get this, the whole solar energy pipe dream. The solar energy's peak is about 12 to 2 o'clock. After about 2, 3 o'clock, about 3 o'clock, it starts winding down. Our peak electricity runs from about 4 to 8 o'clock in the afternoon. Because businesses are still open, more people are coming home, turning on air conditioners, everything else. So our peak power demand is at 4 to 8. Solar electricity from 4 to 8 is going downhill almost to nothing. Probably at about 30 or 40% at 4 o'clock at the capacity it was. And what we have is at 12 to 2, we have had to pay Arizona and Nevada to take the excess power we're generating from the solar panels and ship it in there, because it's threatening to burn the grid down. Because there's no regulation. Once the power has been sent down the grid and down the lines, you send too much power down the line, it's going to burn up the lines. You ever plugged a cord or electric device into something and the cords blew up because it couldn't carry the current needed for the appliance? Is that 5 minutes, or have you done that before, Jesse? Of that. But that's what it does. They're sending power, all these solar panels at peak power, and they're not at peak usage. If you don't get rid of the power, it's going to burn up the transmission lines that get you the power. That's sending it down. It just doesn't. You can't flip a switch and turn it off. So they had to pay Arizona, Utah, Nevada to take our overgeneration of power, and then we bought it back at twice the price from them coming back when we couldn't supply the power from 4 to 8 o'clock. So we got hit twice. You wonder why we have the highest electricity prices in the 50 states in the United States? It's because of stupid government policies. AB 32, solar power, green energy, and all this. Anybody that starts spouting that stuff should be wearing the dunce cap. I mean, I don't know where they're coming up with this stuff of that, other than, you know what, it's just like that. They want to regulate your power. They're going to cut the power, just like they did in Germany when they went on the solar wet dream. Blew up. Nobody could afford to run the air conditioners, anything else. Now they're buying coal, and now a natural gas pipeline's they have to buy natural gas from Russia, which Joe Biden said they can have a pipeline, but no, we canceled the Keystone Pipeline, which would benefit the United States. Chew on those berries for a while. Germany, who almost systematically wrecked their economy and is paying about twice as much per kilowatt than we are in the United States, and had to go back and beg from Russia for coal and now natural gas to fire natural gas and coal power plants so their citizens wouldn't bake in the heat of the summer. You want that to roll out all across the other 49 states. As I said, do not let the cancer of California spread across them, because not only you might laugh when California goes down, but you're going to be right. You know, that cancer, once it's metastasized and it's spread too far, you ain't getting it back. Like I say, Texas, you know why you're going through rolling blackouts? Rick Perry and your current governor, Greg Abbott, bought into this whole solar pipe dream, but all these incentives of your tax money to pay companies to go solar and green and all this other stuff, and it's blowing up in your face. How y'all thinking that deal of recruiting all us Californians down to the Lone Star State now? I told Rick Perry one time, they're a lot smarter than you, and once they get entrenched, they'll bury you so fast that cowboy hat on your spin will screw you right into the ground. And that it will do. But don't listen to the ditch bank Okie from Edgemont. Listen to all these so-called establishment guys and the Republicans and stuff that sell you down the river. We tell it like it is. Just like that. 135 ballots fouled up in New York City, but our elections are purer than the wind-driven snow in 2020. Just how in the hell does that happen? Really? There's just way too much news going on to cover on that, but we do our best on that. I hope you enjoyed today's show. We'll be back tomorrow morning at around 8 o'clock, as we do, to give you nEWSWIRE Morning Report, where we just give you the straight news, like the humongous explosion. 10 pounds of fireworks blew apart a triple-armored detonation machine, destroyed the police vehicle with it, and on top of that, spread debris and upset the residents for a quarter mile on there. Some of the people's ears, I think, are still ringing from that explosion. Somebody's going to have to answer a lot of questions on how that happened. As I said, we'll be back tomorrow morning on nEWSWIRE Morning Report. Then we'll be back here, as we usually do, live at 5, to give you all the news and commentary and all the great things going on, and keep you informed of the things most people don't. In the package, you get nowhere like you get on nEWSWIRE. So it's mandatory you be here in the morning and be back here in 23 hours.